All right, let's continue with chapter 3. We are, in this version, on page 18, smack dab in the middle, because of course you remember, because you just stopped reading there. Then, when he had been still a little while to hear the birds sing, he spoke again. Behold the earth. So I looked down, and I saw it lying yonder like a hoop of peoples. Hoop, another circle. And in the center bloomed the holy stick that was a tree, and where it stood, there crossed two roads, a red one and a black. From where the giant lives, the north, to where you always face the south, the red road goes. The road of good, the grandfather said, and on it your nation shall walk. The black road goes from where the thunder beings live, the west, to where the sun continually shines, the east, not the south, sorry. A fearful road, a road of troubles and of war. On this also you shall walk, and from it you shall have the power to destroy a people's foes. And for ascents you shall walk the earth with power. So the grandfather's kind of like telling him his future here. And now we've moved on from for the gifts from all the areas and the grandfather's there. Now we're talking about his future and his people's future. And so he's going to walk on two roads. And I mean, don't we all walk on two roads? The good road and the bad road, the hard road and the easy road. I mean, Robert Frost wrote his poem about the two roads. We talk a lot about that. But you need to write down in your notes what color is the good road and which color is the bad road, because we'll come back to this several times, and as the events are happening in the chapters to follow, it'll be like, oh, now we're walking this road. So it's just a nice visual to understand how things are going, like if you couldn't tell otherwise. Also, what an easy way to tell someone's future. There's gonna be good things and there's gonna be bad. Oh, okay. I think he meant that I should see and also, sorry, before I start, he also says, the grandfather right now says that you and your people are going to walk 4 ascents. To ascend is to go up. So they're going to start this parade again. There's a question coming up about describe the parade of people. So we're going to do that. But he says there's going to be 4 ascents, 4 peaks or 4 levels, 4 steps, 4 different things before we get to the end, which makes sense. Your life kind of travels in different things as you go. Okay, blah, blah, blah. I think he meant that I should see 4 generations counting me, and now I am seeing the 3rd. Then he rose very tall and started running towards the south, and was an elk. And as he stood among the buckskins yonder, they too were elk. So animals are changing into other animals. We're going from horses to elks now. Elk, not elks, sorry. Now the 5th grandfather spoke. Remember how many grandfathers are there total? There are 6. Sorry, I didn't give you time to think about that. We've got a 4 directions and then up, down. So north, south, east, west, sky, earth. Okay. Now the 5th grandfather spoke. So we're kind of almost through most of them. And the oldest of them all, the spirit of the sky. North, south, east, west, up, down. My boy, he said, I have sent for you and you have come. Yay, my power you shall see. And he stretched his arms, and he turned into a spotted eagle hovering. Which makes sense, because he's like the grandfather of the sky, so of course he turns into a bird. Behold, he said, all the wings of the air shall come to you. They and the winds and the stars shall be like relatives, so you'll be related and familiar. You shall go across the earth with my power. And then the eagle soared above my head and fluttered there, and suddenly the sky was full of friendly wings all coming toward me. Not just wings, but the birds that they're attached to. Now I knew the 6th grandfather was about to speak, he who was the spirit of the earth, and I saw that he was very old. But more as men are old, because earlier, remember, he talked about how the grandfathers were old, like the stars, I don't even know what that means, but mystical and not wrinkly, but just ancient. His hair was long and white, and his face was all in wrinkles, and his eyes were deep and dim. I stared at him, for it seemed I knew him somehow. And as I stared, he slowly changed, for he was growing backwards into youth. And when he had become a boy, I knew that he was myself, with all the years that would be mine at last. And then he changed again. And when he was old again, he said, My boy, have courage, for my power shall be yours, and you shall need it for your nation on earth will have great troubles. Come. So that's kind of cool that like so we go like north, south, east, west, up, down. For earth, that grandfather is like him, and he starts off old, and then he like Benjamin buttons himself back to like show him like I'm you, like you are of the earth, and then he goes back to being old. I don't even know like what that makes me feel, but a lot of feelings. I get it, even though I'm not putting it into words right now. He rose and he tottered out through the rainbow door, and as I followed, I was riding on the bay horse who had talked to me at first and had led me to that place. Then the bay horse stopped and faced the black horses of the west, and a voice said, "They have given you the cup of water to make live the greening day, and also the bow and arrow to destroy." The bay neighed, and the 12 black horses came and stood behind me, 4 abreast. Ooh, we're forming a parade. The bay faced the sorrels of the east, and I saw that they had morning stars upon their foreheads, and they were very bright. And the voice said, "They have given you the sacred pipe, and the power that is peace, and the good red day." And the bay neighed, and the 12 sorrels stood behind me, 4 abreast. So we're reviewing what the different grandfathers and horses gave him, the different gifts. So this is great. And they're all lining up behind him, and they're going to go together on those 4 ascents. Okay. My horse now faced the buckskins of the south, and a voice said, "They have given you the sacred stick, and your nation's hoop, and the yellow day. And in the center of the hoop you shall set the stick, and make it grow into a shielding tree and bloom." So magic stick, put it in the circle. The hoop, which is both like metaphorical, like we're all related, and also literal, like your community was in a circle. Black Elk. The bay neighed, and the 12 buckskins came and stood behind me, 4 abreast. And then I knew that there were riders on all the horses there behind me, and a voice said, "Now you shall walk the black road with these, and as you walk, all the nations that have roots or legs or wings shall fear you." So he's kind of like rising in importance right here. So I started riding toward the east, down the fearful road, because remember they said he's on the black road. And behind me came the 4 horsebacks, 4 abreast. The blacks, the whites, the sorrels, and the buckskins. And far away the fearful road, the daybreak star was rising very dim. I looked below me, where the earth was silent in a sick green light, and I saw the hills look up afraid, and the grasses on the hills, and all the animals, and everywhere about me were the cries of frightened birds and sounds of fleeing wings. I was the chief of all the heavens riding there, and when I looked behind me, all the 12 black horses reared and plunged and thundered, and their manes and tails were whirling hail, and their nostrils snorted lightning. Cool. And when I looked below again, I saw the slant hail falling and the long, sharp rain, and where we passed, the trees bowed low, and all the hills were dim. So it's almost like, okay, so first of all, as he's like walking these 4 ascents, he's still up in the clouds, but he can like see down below him like what's happening on earth. So he kind of like is the storm kind of, and he's watching it with him in the clouds, and also how it's affecting the earth below. That's powerful. Now the earth was bright again as we rode. I could see the hills and the valleys and the creeks and the rivers passing under. We came above a place where 3 streams made a big one, a source of mighty waters, which in your book it says it's the 3 forks of the Missouri, so that's cool. Okay. And something terrible was there. Flames were rising from the waters, and in the flames a blue man lived. The dust was floating all about him in the air, and the grass was short and withered. The trees were wilting. The 2-legged and 4-legged beings lay there thin and panting, with wings too weak to fly. Okay, so I know one of your questions coming up is like, what's up with the blue man? So there's going to be like a bit of a battle here. So think about what this blue man might represent. He's blue, so think what things on the earth are kind of bluish. And then everything around him is super dry and just like dying. So think about that. Then the black horse riders shouted, "Hookah-hey," and charged down upon the blue man, but were driven back. And the white troops shouted, I don't know how to turn that off. haunting of kids' toys. Okay. Blue horse. Everyone's charging down on the blue man. It's not working out. And the white troop shouted, charging, and was beaten, and then the red troop and the yellow. And when each had failed, they all cried together, "Eagle wing stretches! Hurry!" That's Black Elk, eagle wing stretches. And because remember, that's the grandfather who's like, okay. All the world was filled with voices of all kinds that cheered me, so I charged. I had the cup of water in one hand, and in the other was the bow that turned into a spear as the bay and I swooped down. And the spear's head was sharp lightning, and it stabbed the blue man's heart. And as it struck, I could hear the thunder rolling and so many voices that cried, "Unhee!" meaning I had killed. The flames died, the trees and the grasses were not withered anymore, and they murmured happily together, and every living being cried in gladness with whatever voice it had. Then the 4 troops of horsemen charged down and struck the dead body of the blue man, counting coup, and suddenly it was only a harmless turtle. Okay. Okay, let's talk about that really quick. I think I asked you what's the symbolism, or what does the blue man symbolize? So think about if you have a thing that's blue, and then you've got all these like dead, hot, dry, withering grasses and people next to it. It's almost as if that blue man is hoarding what? And then we poke him and whoosh, everything's cool. I'm not going to tell you. Okay. You see, I had been riding with the storm clouds, and I had come to earth as rain, and it was drought with a TH. It was drought that I had killed with the power that the 6 grandfathers gave me. Okay, so there's your answer. So we were riding on the earth now, down along the river, flowing full of the source of waters. So all of a sudden, like, water is like, bsha! He brought it back with the storm that he was riding with in the air. And soon I saw ahead the circled villages of a people in the valley. And a voice said, "Behold, a nation, it's yours. Make haste, eagle wings stretches." I entered the village riding with the 4 horse troops behind me, the blacks, the whites, the sorrels, and the buckskins. And the place was filled with moaning and with mourning for the dead. The wind was blowing from the south like fever, and when I looked around, I saw that in nearly every teepee, the women and the children and the men lay dying with the dead. So I rode around the circle of the village, looking in upon the sick and the dead, and I felt like crying as I rode. But when I looked behind me, all the women, the children, and the men were getting up and coming forth with happy faces. And a voice said, "Behold, they have given you the center of the nation's hoop to make it live." So I rode to the center of the village with the horse troops and the quarters all around me, and there the people gathered. And the voice said, "Give them now the flowering stick that they may flourish," that's the red stick, "and the sacred pipe that they may know the power that is peace, and the wing of the white giant that they may have endurance and face all winds with courage." So I took the bright red stick, and at the center of the nation's hoop, I thrust it in the earth. And as it touched the earth, it leaped mightily in my hand, and it was a wagachun, the rustling tree, which in your note says is the cottonwood, which, if you know cottonwood, yeah, they are very rustly. It was very tall and full of leafy branches and of all the birds singing. And beneath it, all the animals were mingling with the people like relatives and making happy cries. The women raised their tremolo of joy, and the men shouted all together, "Here we shall raise our children and be as little chickens under the mother sheo's wing," the prairie hen's wing. And then I heard the white wind blowing gently through the tree and singing there. And from the east, the sacred pipe came flying on its eagle wings, because remember, all those things are like alive on it in the dream, and stopped before me there beneath the tree, spreading deep peace around it. Oh, it's so nice. Then the daybreak star was rising, and a voice said, "It shall be a relative to them, and who shall see it shall see much more, for thence comes wisdom. And those who do not see it shall be dark." And all the people raised their faces to the east, and the star's light fell upon them, and all the dogs barked loudly, and the horses whinnied. Okay, so here we see just like a little taste, a dream example of like what he needs to do. So he's getting these gifts from the grandfathers, and now he's like, going down to earth to use them. It's not real life, it's still his dream. Which, by the way, the fact that he can remember all these details as an old man says something about the power of this dream. Yeah, no wonder it should be in a book this thick. This is an amazing dream. So in the dream, he is fixing all the problems and saving all the people. First, we save everyone from drought. Now we've saved and are saving everyone from sickness by planting this tree, and it sprouts into like all these different happy, alive, commingling things. Now we got the peace pipe flying in on its own, spreading peace. This is great. Then, when the many little voices ceased, the great voice said, "Behold, the circle of the nations hoop, for it is holy, being endless, and thus all powers shall be one power, and the people without end. And now they shall break camp and go forth upon the red road." Oh, good, we're switching roads. We're going from black to red. "And your grandfathers shall walk with them." So the people broke camp, and they took the good road with the white wing on their faces, and the order of their going was like this. First, the black horse riders with the cup of water, and the white horse riders with the white wing and the sacred herb, and then the sorrel riders with the holy pipe, the buckskins with the flowering stick, and after these, the little children and the youths and the maidens followed in a band, so in a big group. That's the first. Oh, I think there's a question now where I ask you to describe this giant parade, so be paying attention. Second, came the tribe's 4 chieftains, and their band was all young men and women. Third, the nation's 4 advisors, leading men and women, neither young nor old, so middle-aged. Fourth, old men, hobbling with their canes and looking to the earth. Fifth, old women, hobbling with their canes and looking to the earth. I feel like the women should be first, but that's fine. Sixth, myself, all alone, upon the bay with the bow and the arrows that the first grandfather gave me. But I was not the last. For when I looked behind me, there were ghosts of people like a trailing fog as far as I could see. Grandfathers of grandfathers and grandmothers of grandmothers without number. And over these, a great voice. The voice that was the South. It lived, and I could feel it. Silent. And as we went, the voice behind me said, "Behold a good nation walking in a sacred manner in a good land." Then I looked up, and I saw that there were 4 ascents ahead. And these, okay, before we get into that, let's talk really quickly about the parade of people going now. It's so beautiful. So it starts off with those horses, those helpful horses that represent the grandfathers from up above, and they each are carrying their gift with them. Okay, cool. Then now we're down on earth, and we go through the different ages kind of this village that he saved. We start with the young, and then we grow to bigger kids, and then we go to middle-aged people, and then we go to the oldies and the chieftains, the people in charge, and then we go to the oldies, and then we have the old ladies, firms, blah, and then we have Black Elk, and he's kind of herding them all in on his horse, but behind him, because if you think about it, I said in a previous video, anytime something good happens, it's not just you, it's all the people who have helped you along the way. So behind all of these people and Black Elk herding them, or leading them from behind, are the ancestors, the people who have come before, the people who made the culture in which you live, the people who shaped your grandfathers and grandfathers and grandfathers. They're not forgotten, they're still there, and an endless ghosty little presence behind him. And behind that, or above that, is this voice that is both awesome and speaking and silent. It's really cool. So what a parade. Okay, now it's time for the ascents. Then I looked up, and I saw that there were 4 ascents ahead, and these were generations I should know. Now we climbed on the first ascent, and all the land was green. And as the long line climbed, all the old men and women raised their hands palm forward to the far sky yonder, and began to croon a song together. And the sky ahead was filled with clouds of baby faces. Oh, I love clouds of baby faces. This isn't the first time in this book, or in the whole school year, where you'll see crazy clouds. Gatsby has a favorite part in chapter 6 that I really like. Anyway, so first ascent, it's easy. It's green. Everyone's woohoo, this is great. So write that down, because as you know, as you climb upstairs or go up a mountain, it's gonna get harder. But now it's not, but it will be. When we came to the end of the first ascent, we camped in the sacred circle as before, and in the center stood the holy tree, and still the land about us was all green. Then we started on that second ascent, marching as before, and still the land was green, but it was getting steeper. And as I looked ahead, the people changed into elks and bison, and all the four-footed beings, and even into fowls, birds, all walking in a sacred manner on the good red road together. And I myself was a spotted eagle soaring above them. Of course he is. Of course he's watching over them from above. But just before we stopped to camp at the end of that ascent, all the marching animals grew restless and afraid that they were not what they had been. And they began sending forth voices of trouble, calling to their chiefs. And when they camped at the end of that ascent, I looked down and I saw that leaves were falling from the holy tree. Okay, so first ascent, good, green, everyone's happy. Second ascent, second step. First of all, A, we changed into animals. Everyone did, even black elk. And B, everyone's like, eh. And but also worth mentioning is that the holy tree, that is the thing around which they are planted, their circles. That tree is going from like a beautiful cottonwood tree to fall, where the leaves are starting to fall. So that's symbolic, right? Okay. And the voice said, "Behold your nation, and remember what your 6 grandfathers gave you, and thenceforth your people walk in difficulties." Then the people broke camp again, and they saw that the black road before them towards where the sun goes down, and the black clouds coming yonder, and they didn't want to go, but they could not stay. And as they walked the third ascent, all the animals and fowls that were the people ran here and there, for each one seemed to have his own little vision that he followed, and his own rules, and all over the universe I could hear the winds at war, like wild beasts fighting. So the end of the third ascent, we're kind of losing the continuity, the formation and the togetherness, and all these animals who were people are freaking out more, and they're separating. So you can read into the future with what's happening in just this segment of his dream. People walking together, breaking up, losing their circular way of life and not going well. And all the while, we know that Black Elk, speaking as an old man looking back on this vision that he's talking about now, he really believed that the gifts he was given in this vision, which weren't actual objects that he took when he woke up. It wasn't oh, I've got a bunch of presents. I mean, they were metaphorical gifts, ways that he could help his people. His purpose in life was to use his gifts that were given to him in this vision, so to use his vision to help his people. And we know that he feels like he didn't, that he fell short. So you can see it happening in real time in his dream right here. Okay. When the people were getting ready to begin the fourth ascent, the last one, the voice spoke like someone weeping, and it said, "Look there upon your nation." And when I looked down, the people were all changed back to human, and they were thin, their faces sharp, for they were starving. Their ponies were only hide and bones, and the holy tree was gone. Okay, so now the tree is not just losing its leaves, it's gone. And also fourth ascent means the people have changed back. And as I looked and wept, I saw that there stood on the earth, on the north side of the starving camp, a sacred man who was all painted red all over his body, and he held a spear as he walked in the center of the people, and there he lay down and rolled. And when he got up, it was a fat bison standing there, and where the bison stood, a sacred herb sprang up right where the tree had been in the center of the nation's hoop. The herb grew and bore 4 blossoms on a single stem while I was looking, a blue, a white, a scarlet, and a yellow, red and yellow. And that the bright rays of these flashed to the heavens. I know what this meant, that the bison were the gift of a good spirit, and they were our strength, but we shouldn't lose them. Don't lose them. And from the same good spirit we must find another strength. For the people all seemed better when the herb had grown and bloomed, and the horses raised their tails and neighed and pranced around. I could see a light breeze going from the north among the people like a ghost, and suddenly the flowering tree was there again at the center of the nation's hoop, where the four-rayed herb had blossomed. So the tree is gone, and in its place, this bison's rolling around, and when he gets up, bloop, then there's a little like herb, a little plant. So Black Elk interprets this to mean that A, the bison are super important to us. I feel like we've been referenced to this a lot, and like in all the movies and books that we've read before. So bison's really important. And B, a really good lesson, like when the tree falls over, you got to find you can't just give up. You have to find something else and look to something else. So when the tree goes, now we'll use the herb. And then like the tree's like, okay, I'm coming back. So always look for something else. Don't just give up. Okay. I was still the spotted eagle floating, and I could see that I was already in the fourth ascent, and the people were camping yonder at the top of the third long rise. It was dark and terrible about me, for all the winds of the world were fighting. It was like rapid gunfire and like whirling smoke, and the women and children wailing, and like horses screaming all over the world. I could see my people yonder running about. Just looking ahead here, a couple more pages. I could see my people yonder running about, setting the smoke flap poles and fastening down their teepees against the wind, for the storm cloud was coming on them very fast and black, and there were frightened swallows without number, fleeing before the cloud. Then a song of power came to me, and I sang it there in the midst of that terrible place where I was, and it went like this. A good nation I will make live. This the nation above has said, and they have given me the power to make over. I don't know if that's a question on there, but so his song, his prayer is, I'm going to help my people. I've got gifts from above. I'm going to do it. And when I had sung this, a voice said, to the four quarters you shall run for help, and nothing shall be strong before you. Behold him. And now I was on my bay horse again, because the horse is of the earth. So he's back to a human. And it was there my power would be used. And as I obeyed the voice and I looked, there was a horse, all skin and bones, and yonder in the west, a faded brownish black. Oh no, he sees a sick horse. And a voice there said, take this and make him over. And it was the four-rayed herb that I was holding in my hand. Oh, good. So tree didn't work, so we sprung up this herb. Got to be resourceful and like look for new ways to win. So he's going to use the herb. Great, good way to think outside the box. So I rode over to the poor horse in a circle, and as I did this, I could hear the people yonder calling for spirit power. Then the poor horse neighed and rolled and got up, and he was a big, shiny black stallion with dapples all over him, and his mane about him was like a cloud. He was the chief of all the horses, and when he snorted, it was a flash of lightning, and his eyes were like the sunset star. He dashed to the west, and he neighed, and the west was filled with the dust of hoofs and horses without number, shiny, black, and they came plunging out from the dust. Then he dashed toward the north, and he neighed, and to the east, and to the south, and the dust clouds answered, giving forth their plunging horses without number. Whites and sorrels and buckskins, fat, shiny, rejoicing in their fleetness and their strength. It was beautiful, but it was also terrible. So he saved this horse, and the horse multiplied with the herb. He was like, bloop, there's your herb. And the horse was like, bah! And it like rallied up all the horses from all four directions. Then they stopped short, rearing, and they were standing in a great hoop. Good, another circle. They were standing in a great hoop about their black chief at the center, and they were still. And as they stood, 4 virgins, yay virgins, more beautiful than women of the earth can be. Okay, so that we can't understand how beautiful they were. They came through the circle dressed in scarlet, one from each of the 4 quarters, and they stood about the great black stallion in their places, and one held the wooden cup of water, and one the white wing, and one the pipe, and one the nation's hoop. And all the universe was silent, listening. So they're holding his gifts that he's going to use. And then the great black stallion raised his voice and sang something like this. My horses prancing, they are coming. All over the universe they come, and they will dance. May you behold them. A horse nation, they will dance. May you behold them. His voice was not loud, but it went all over the universe and filled it. There was nothing that didn't hear, and it was more beautiful than anything can be. It was so beautiful that nothing anywhere could keep from dancing. The virgins danced, and all the circled horses. The leaves on the trees, the grasses on the hills and in the valleys, the waters in the creeks and in the rivers and the lakes and the four-leggeds and the two-leggeds, and on the wings of the air, they all danced together to the music of the stallion's song. And if you think about things like right now at the corner, the wind is going, it's kind of like the trees are dancing. I like it. And when I looked down upon my people yonder, the cloud passed over, blessing them with friendly rain, and it stood in the east with a flaming rainbow over it. Rainbow. Then all the horses went singing back to their places beyond the summit of the fourth ascent, and all things sang along with them as they walked. And a voice said, "All over the universe they have finished a day of happiness." And looking down, I saw that the whole wide circle of the day was beautiful and green, with all fruits growing and all things kind and happy. Then a voice said, "Behold this day, for it is yours to make. Now you shall stand upon the center of the earth to see, for there they are taking you." I was still on my bay horse, and once more I felt the riders of the west, the north, the east, the south, behind me in formation, as before, and we were going east. I looked ahead, and I saw the mountains there with rocks and forests on them, and from the mountains flashed all colors upward to the heavens. Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round about beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. Oh yeah, just side note, I'm looking down at the asterisk here. The whole hoop of the world was believed, Black Elk said that he thought that the mountain that he stood on was Harney Peak, which will come up later, but anywhere is the center of the world. I like it. Thanks, Black Elk. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw, for I was seeing in a sacred manner the shapes of all things in the spirit, and the shape of all shapes as they must live together like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that made one circle, wide as daylight and straight as in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy. So this is kind of like human rights right here. Like you have your own circle, and it's part of like a giant circle, how we're all connected. And the flowering tree, which we saw again, the red stick. So it is the gift that like makes everything work. Then as I stood there, two men were coming from the east, head first like arrows flying, and behind them rose the daybreak star. They came and gave me an herb and said, "With this on earth you shall undertake anything and do it." And it was the daybreak star herb, the herb of understanding. And they told me to drop it on the earth. And I saw it falling far, and when it struck the earth, it rooted and grew and flowered 4 blossoms on one stem, a blue, a white, a scarlet, and a yellow. And the rays from these streamed upward to the heavens, so that all creatures saw it, and in no place there was darkness. Then the voice said, "Your 6 grandfathers, now you shall go back to them." I had not noticed how I was dressed until now, and I saw that I was painted red all over, and my joints were painted black, with white stripes between the joints. My bay had lightning stripes all over him, and his mane was cloud. And when I breathed, my breath was lightning. Now 2 men were leading me headfirst like arrows slanting upward, and the two that brought me from the earth. And as I followed on the bay, they turned into 4 flocks of geese that flew in circles, one above each quarter, sending forth a sacred voice as they flew. Burp, B-R-R-R-P, burp. I don't know what that's supposed to sound like, but I love it. Okay, so now we're going back up to see the grandfathers, and instead of being horses this time, we're turning into like birds. Well, I think he stays as he is, but all the horses that came with him, birds. Then I saw ahead the rainbow flaming above the teepee of the 6 grandfathers, built and roofed with cloud and sewed with thongs of lightning, and underneath it there were the wings of the air, and under them the animals and men. All these were rejoicing, and thunder was like happy laughter. And as I rode in through the rainbow door, there were cheering voices from all over the universe, and I saw the 6 grandfathers sitting in a row with their arms held toward me and their hands palms out. Behind them in the cloud were faces thronging without number of the people yet to be. So again, I remember stories my dad telling me about, like, answering kid questions, and he would always say, like, because I'd be like, where was I before I was born? Because, where are you? I don't know. So he would always say that I was, oh crap, now I can't remember, like upstairs in heaven playing games with God or something like that. So here we are, all these kids who like aren't yet cool of the people yet to be. He has triumphed, cried the 6 together, making thunder. And as I passed before them there, each gave again the gift that he had given to me before, the cup of water and the bow and arrows, the power to make life and destroy, the white wing of cleansing and the healing herb, the sacred pipe, the flowering stick. And each one spoke in turn from west to south, explaining what he gave as he had done before. And each one spoke as he melted down into the earth and rose again. And as each did this, I felt nearer to the earth. So, so they're melting and they're coming back. I mean, what a vision. And again, we're reviewing the 4 gifts that he got there, and everyone, he saved the people in the dream. So everyone's like, you did it! Now you just got to go do it in real life. But yay, not worry about that yet. Okay. Then the oldest of them said, grandson, all over the universe you have seen, and now you shall go back with power to the place from whence you came, and it shall happen yonder that hundreds shall be sacred, hundreds shall be flames. Behold, and I looked below, and I saw my people there, and all were well and happy, except one, and he was lying like the dead, and that one was myself. And then the oldest grandfather sang, and his song was like that. There is someone lying on the earth in a sacred manner. On earth he lies, and I have made him to walk. Because remember, he's sick. That's what starts off his whole vision. He's like, oh, I don't feel good. And he gets dragged around in the pony drag. Can't move his arms and legs. His face is all swollen up. Now the teepee, built and roofed with cloud, began to sway back and forth as in a wind, and the flaming rainbow door was growing dimmer. I could hear voices of all kinds crying from outside. Eagle Wing Stretches is coming forth. Behold him. And when I went through the door, the face of the day of earth was appearing with the daybreak star upon its forehead. And the sun leaped up and looked upon me, and I was going forth alone. And as I walked alone, I heard the sun singing as it arose, and it sang like this. With visible face I am appearing in a sacred manner. For the graining earth a pleasantness I make. The center of the nation's hoop I have made pleasant. 4-leggeds and 2-leggeds I've made them to walk. Wings of the air I've made them to fly. My day I have made it holy. And I shortened that up. When the singing stopped, I was feeling lost and very lonely. And then a voice above me said, look back. It was a spotted eagle that was hovering over me and spoke. And I looked, and where the flaming rainbow teepee, built and roofed with cloud, had been, I saw only the tall rock mountain at the center of the world. I was all alone on a broad plain now, with my feet upon the earth, alone but for the spotted eagle guarding me. I could see my people's village far ahead, and I walked very fast, for I was homesick now. And then I saw my own teepee, and inside I saw my mother and my father bending over a sick boy that was myself. And as I entered the teepee, someone was saying, the boy's coming to you. You had better give him some water. And then I was sitting up, and I was sad because my mother and father didn't seem to know I had been so far away. Ah! It's so insane. I don't know what kind. My dreams are crazy. I just had I'll tell you about them from time to time. I just had a huge long Marco Polo video with my friend telling them about like the craziness of my dreams. Dreams are crazy, but Never have I had a dream that is so symbolic and like brings me to such purpose. I can't imagine what that is like. But this is it. Good job. You now know A, what he's supposed to do. B, like how he's supposed to do it. You know about the gifts, where the gifts came from. You know about the horses and the grandfathers and the rainbow clouds, and walking the four ascents. You know the red road and the black road, and you know that Black Elk is charged in this dream from the grandfathers, from God, from the spirits. He needs to save his people. So, great job.